So this week's episode of No Guns Life was a different episode, I have to say. It had the most unique flair is how I'd put it, as a majority of the episode was dedicated to either on the antagonist side, which got a good 8-9 minutes of the first little chunk of the anime, and then we were focusing a lot on Tetsuro, Mary, and a new character, Colt, who is obviously up to no good trying to rope our boy Tetsuro into a probably shady organization, a shady job, and by the end of the episode it's clear that Juzo's going to be hunting him, and I imagine it's going to be a unfortunate circumstance when they come and butt heads during the job, right? But I thought it was a refreshing episode. I really enjoyed it, especially because we got a third of the episode dedicated to the antagonist side, and actually getting more than just a couple of minutes, which for the most part is what we've had up to this point, where when we focus on the antagonists, focus on the villains, focus on any of the characters who aren't as righteous as maybe our focal, it feels like we get 2 minutes at best and then we switch back to the main crew at hand, which is fun, of course, but if you're going to set up a pretty disruptive, a very corrupt society with a lot of underground, underhanded measures, I think at some point you do need to show us what's truly underneath the hood and what's going on with their own stories. And when we see a returning face who maybe we don't like on a personal level, but seeing him get shook down by the people in charge who it seems like have merged into one crazy ass robotic thing, a face of a face. I thought it was a very entertaining thing, especially because you have a couple of extendeds in the background just laughing at him as he's basically gets shook down saying, hey, you're basically a failure, you've done everything wrong, and you've even used weapons that we didn't permit you to use, but we'll give you one last shot. And anytime you hear that one last shot, you pretty much know that they're screwed. There's no way that they're going to recover from this, and if they do, they better go buy a lottery ticket that same day, because holy shit, I mean, his luck must be out of this world. But I think after seeing last week with the whole sniper shot and taking out an extended with armed, and I thought it was nice to kick off this episode and dedicate a decent amount of time into seeing their psyche and actually getting a better understanding of this organization. Even without knowing too much about them, it feels like they are some of the most frightening things that you're going to see this season, especially when you have multiple voices talking down at you and they look like this gearhead that turns around when it wants to speak. Like, it's kind of insane. Like, we know how much corruption is going on in this society and how many underhanded measures they do, all in the name of progress for technology, and then by the time you get Colt stuff in this episode, the fact that they can do whatever they want to both him and his mother, and they don't even have to compensate with money. They can just say to the media they did okay, they took care of it, when really they just threw them to the curb. Like, it kind of feels so disappointing, but also so rewarding to see what's going on, because you're so disappointed in what this society is and just how easy it is for corrupt societies and organizations to get away scot-free. But on the other hand, it's disappointing because you see a character like Colt and you feel like if things would have been different, if things would have been even slightly different, maybe there wouldn't have been these underground jobs that he would have to take up and justify it as this is the only way for him and his mother's survival. So I really did appreciate the intro chunk to this episode. I thought it was refreshing, and I was going to be completely on board if this entire episode was dedicated to the antagonist. I was actually a little disappointed at first. I was like, you know what? Even if I don't know these characters, even if I don't like some of these characters on a personal level, I'm really getting a bunch of enthusiasm watching all this take place, especially because of how visually distinct and just the dialogue was distinct from anything we've seen up to this point. But they definitely did reward the viewer with a lot of Mary and Tetsuro content, and Juzo playing hard to get. I mean, it's just very cute, it's very adorable, and I don't expect him to, want to really go eat dinner and be buddies with everyone until probably the end of the first core, maybe in the end of the second core, because I think this is a split core. I think season 2 comes out in the spring or something like that. But nonetheless, I mean, eventually Juzo's gonna play a little more nicely with his friends, even if he doesn't want to call them friends from time to time, especially when his doctor is basically taking all of his earnings because he has so much repairs that need to be done. I still thought it was just absolutely adorable, and I love the little chibi and more out there comedy scenes to just really get a chuckle out of you, especially coming off of all that antagonist dialogue. It was pretty tense, so it was nice to have some more comfy atmosphere before we got a little more serious. Like, this was a very personal episode, both on the antagonist and some of our side characters' mentalities. Like, Mary actually getting some decent time to, we learn about why she became a mechanic. We learn that she has a brother that she's looking for, and apparently her brother's an incredible mechanic going off to wars. Like, there's people they're all searching for, and then by the end of the episode, it all links up together. Juzo's gonna be taking up a job that's ultimately gonna end up with, connecting to Tetsuro, because, Tetsuro's taking up the job. This man's doctor, his mechanic, whatever you want to call him, is linked up to Mary. Like, everyone's connecting, and by the time they realize they're all connected, what's that gonna look like? That confrontation is going to be spicy, And even though you know Juzo's not gonna, want to kill Tetsuro or anything, even if he's doing illegal activities, still, there's going to be some trouble brewing, and I think that's what makes this episode so great, is that it felt so different. It was a very refreshing episode with not a lot of familiarity to past episodes, really giving you different types of dialogue, different perspectives, and things like that, allowing for this series to show, once again, that No Guns Life is more than just action spectacle or funny-looking characters. There's actually personal stories, and even the antagonists, even if you hate them on a personal level, they need time to actually showcase what the hell they have to offer for this story, and they are more than just this little trope that we see pop up every so often, which was very nice. And getting more information on Pepper and this other extended who, I gotta say, has a badass character design. He's very similar to Juzo's, but I just love his little wardrobe going on, and I'm really excited to see more of him, which I don't know if we're gonna see too much of this extended with the remaining 3 episodes, but I definitely think we're going to see a lot in a second core for sure. And I mean, I really want to see both Juzo and this other extended go hand to hand, because we've seen extended on extended combat, but what about 2 of the same model? From Juzo's side, that would be insane, especially if he's come to accept Tetsuro as basically his wielder. If both of them are blasting their guns at the same time, it sounds ridiculous, because, it is No Gun Slave. It can be ridiculous at times, but also very serious. I think it'd be awesome, especially if they ended the first core with some extended on extended, all on Juzo's model. But it just felt like this episode, almost like it was supposed to decompress the viewer, right? We've had a lot of intensity, especially over the past few weeks. So the fact that we didn't even really have action, the most action we had was basically Tetsuro trying to get the stolen goods, and how this man just got so enthusiastic, like, holy shit, you did that? You gotta come on my job because I thought you were a nobody, but clearly you got some insane skills. Besides that, there was no action. It was more slice of life dialogue, shaking down antagonists, and more comfy and cute scenes with Juzo and the gang. And I thought all of the styles worked. If they would have given me an entire episode of Mary just making fun and kind of poking at her boy, I thought that would have been a good episode. If we would have just focused on the antagonist for an entire 20 minutes, that would have been an intriguing episode, just because it's a perspective we haven't seen up until now. Or if they wanted to go more serious and maybe setting up more plot-centric stuff with either families or, clearly some crime activity going on, it all would have worked, but they kind of balanced 3 separate styles into one, and kind of just let us feel like No Guns Life is starting in a new direction. We had some great exhilarating moments for sure, but now we're doing something slightly different, and it feels like the more Juzo connects with these characters, the more the cast evolves and the more interesting this show becomes, while clearly getting even more information about the criminal organization that may appear more righteous in the media, but clearly is doing a lot of underhanded and pretty scummy tactics. No Guns Life is just this really interesting political post-war interesting tale. It just is doing so much while being so ridiculous all in the process, where you balance between thinking this is super serious, super interesting, very mature, and then there's some ridiculous comedy, and it makes us think it's so goddamn absurd. It all works, and No Guns Life has this style that just really clicks with me. I just feel like episodes like these are so good and don't feel like a letdown in the slightest. I think a lot of people might come off like Action and say, oh, this episode didn't do a whole lot, but it really did. It set up the plot, it set up the characters, and it actually showed us a lot of things we haven't seen up to this point because we have been focusing on so much action. Even though there was personal stories at play, there was still a lot of action taking up time, so we couldn't focus in on the antagonist and see what's going on with their organization and seeing how shaky the political landscape is for them. To be honest though, I actually think my favorite part of this entire episode would have been the first 8 to 9 minutes. There's just something about it that felt like, because it was so new, because every time we focused in on those villains, those antagonists, it felt like we really were just seeing them at face value. We weren't seeing them separated from our main cast, meaning we didn't get those more personal motivations. And I feel like the more we see on the villain side, actually, in a lot of ways, that might be the thing I'm most excited about going forward with No Guns Life. Even though I don't expect we'll see a lot of it, the more we see on the antagonist side, the more we'll understand that they're not just the person trying to oppose our main character, but they actually have their own stories that clearly matter to them, and their lives are on the line the same way it is for Juzo or any of the main cast. I really think a lot of anime, a lot of stories in general, they forget to really flesh out the opposing side, really let us just focus on their perspective and not have to insert your main character into their scenes. Like, let them stand tall by themselves. I don't think a lot of people would walk into an episode like this, look at this man and say, you know what? Alright, I think it's time that we just really focus in on his story. No one's really going to say that, but once it got going, I was interested in his story. I was actually, you know what? I'm glad I'm focusing in on you, even though I think you're a scumbag. I find that you're actually able to hold your own scene together, and I wouldn't have said that walking into this episode, but very quickly, watching his stuff play out, I was like, you know what, if you want to give me more of his content, absolutely go for it, or any of the characters on the antagonist side. It's something that a lot of anime, a lot of stories in general forget to do, but this episode really proved to me that the perspectives are going to be most likely incredibly intriguing, if not fantastic, depending on how they're written in. That's kind of an amazing feeling, I have to say. The more I watch No Guns Life, the more I enjoy this show. I feel like the characters across the board are so interesting, and even those that I thought were just the random villains of the week are actually getting time to flesh out and feel like they're going to be more than that before they're either death, arrest, or maybe they'll get away scot-free. You don't really know, but it kind of feels like No Guns Life is going in an elegant direction. And I don't know, man, I just feel like, on one hand, I'm sad that we only have a few more episodes of No Guns Life, but on the other hand, I feel like by the time episode 12 concludes, I'm going to feel like, you know what? Let's have a little bit of a break, wait for episodes 13 through 24, and get us even more excited to return to No Guns Life, because we've had such a great first season here, and we're just so enthusiastic to see more. So by the time we watch that episode 13 months later, it's gonna feel like patience was key there. It let us recharge, let us regroup, and feel even more enthusiastic than we did walking into maybe episode 2 after realizing episode 1 was actually kind of amazing and we wanted to see more. Or at least that's how I'm feeling anyway. But what did everyone think of this week's episode of No Guns Life? It definitely felt like a different style of an episode, so I'll be interested to hear if people enjoyed it as much as myself, or if it was a complete and utter letdown for you. Whatever you're feeling, do let me know. And be sure to like the video if you did enjoy, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.